Hello, I put a link to a video of Mr. Waters World. I don't know if it was prime time. It was in Fox News. Fox News has people who answer the phones who are making confessions to me. They have roles with I haven't called WTNH because they've been planting evidence. Their sources have been planting evidence, using them to plant evidences at corners of streets. They have been using the people who answer the phones for Fox Connecticut News to play games with the intelligence community and names next to their locations, who have roles with judges and prosecutors and their family members next to campuses, and on and off them, putting fake things in there, and roles with uses of all sides in criminal and civil cases, black pupils, because there is a certain type of victim slash hyper victim that is caused by a breaching method that also right through our schools keeps blamed on other things, others, ourselves, in all self-valued roles where that body is sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including of countries, black pupils. Before America's founders were born, slavery was entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies. And the northern colonies and southern colonies, while they were fighting with themselves, they were trying to get out of roles with it. But they came from semi ancient times. Per method that locked uses of names, self valued, as systems tactically ulterior from the one that has assigned all difference slash S in demonstration of what must lead and how it can. It is distinctly five identities of order, black pupils. They prevent us calm speech. You see, reviews that have roles with World Trade Center predicate acts with facts. The sources of and people on off the campus of Tucker Carlson and Mr. Waters. And these are people involved with people from Pakistan, people from Afghanistan leaders and kids involved with all kinds of natures of medical corruption, all kinds of fake uses of drugs they're attaching kids to, uses of alcohol and their family members, faked and changed communications with everyone around themselves. These are a whole bunch of people with Harvard Hospital, for example. They have an Institute of Living that was founded on the campus of Harvard Hospital in 1822, while slavery was still well entrenched north and south, exactly the way, and our founders told us to get it unabridged. But our founders didn't have free speech. They told us to communicate and understand about why and how, too, because a breaching method was censoring everybody. In other words, a breaching method had everyone factory nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved. See how the breaching method effectively pulled, and the World Trade Center attack effectively pulled off, keeping self-value torture. So people with the name Zano and people with the FBI have roles with wire crime acts and methods and tactical delusions that are also relative. But Weathersfield police attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and I was an adult. And so now this is recorded and they can't discern that, so they can't be trusted. And with the courts that have been planting roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases since I was a kid. And in the Ninth Circuit Court in the World Trade Center attack context, the same people involved with WFSB and Fox Connecticut News and WTNH and other news locations and the names next to their locations and their family members and the people on their campuses involved with predicate acts with facts. It is recorded how the journalists are kept criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a police form. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a judge. See, but black pupils. This breaching method is about a predicate acts with facts method. Predicate acts with facts methods are recorded. Now we have to stay as the subject, the predicate acts, any one of them who disbelieves. WFSB attached me to fake conversations about the World Trade Center while I caught them forcing a principal child abuser and roles with the uses of corners of streets and of buildings to plant evidences per the use slash S of all natures of investigations. Investigators in their campuses used criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, Roth's founding slash S. at countries A through Z. I tell best so many ways. Boxing and where and how I don't, I'm honest about that. So you guys have the difference of expertise. You guys leave out exception nature. No, well, that's how we were. That was our topic, our subject. We only have so much time, or whatever. In other words, how much time do you guys need? Black pupils, this is inseparable from every subject. See whites of eyes, don't shoot. Correct. And so our campuses are not just criminally foreign influenced; they are hyper criminally foreign influenced, and to keep other things, others ourselves blamed, even when correctly. Like for example, with criminal foreign influences, all sides are right. They have to counter criminal foreign influences, but all sides miss how that's because there's use of a hyper criminal foreign influences. This came from before modern nations' names. They had to defend themselves as simultaneously self-value defenses of groupings of humanity, tactically grouped, tactically ulterior from how it communicates with that difference /S as its own. We could be systems other. We could ignore it, be about positive and negative other way as criminal and citizen, but it will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts of nature. All appearances that all exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other. They come with demonstrations too simultaneously. Averse the special difference of your own, being forced from here leads of hadith. And that being self-valued, not for the known reasons. This shows us the difference increasingly between the invisible, but the physical, but so discernible, the invisible, but still discernible, and the hyper-invisible, but still discernible. The hyper-invisible, but still discernible is why and how. We have more names than one needed for the verb. The hyper-invisible is why and is how. All subject treatments come with a hyper-possession that is distinctly possession over them. Their finite details, the order of the finite, the grouped details, and the simultaneous subject /S. And has three natures of hyper-invisible as that, but also further that won't mix. Like, for example, what actually was true and as value, where value is nature / nature's value before, the smallest finite detail now. See, nature uses such to communicate with us, but again, we have been systems. In other words, in the nature of questions. See, the nature of questions that lead to presidents, for example, and regarding, in other words, experts regarding such, leaving out criminal foreign influence, hyper-criminal foreign influence. How many countries are roles with locations, areas, and states never stop sharing campuses, criminally foreign influence here and there, though. And the difference, too, or the difference, used worse, simultaneously juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. The breaching method knew and propagated self-cultivated by having them self-valued because they knew that they would have to counter things syntactically, things like criminal foreign influences. It knew they would have to counter hypercriminal foreign influences, but it knew it had separated the members of the republic for which we stand, America, and that humanity once stood before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. And it was with exceptions and exception nature, because it was keeping led by the hyper invisible but still discernible. It doesn't work through the invisible or the physical discernible alone, and it comes with a contemplation, which is the relativity of why I noted questions. The nature wants us to ask and to think questions and about, be led by why and how, understand why and how it wants us to question, and why and how it answers our question. Basically, we are forbid short words proper with theory, let alone with conviction. All exception agents appear to be a demonstration of other. They were also already being and having been employed, where and how used remotely, are all formal identities of the law. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness only allowed to be manifest, inherent, active, and progressive to the styles and natures of logic. For example, regarding the value of voting, and like when people know where and how fake things are stuck in databases. We note this increasingly in other words, and also clearer than day. This breaching method employed cultural and all natures of difference. It hurt them and helped them simultaneously. For how it propagated, self-cultivated, means to measure and make, to sense for itself, to sense for the hyperforeign, other things, others, ourselves, blamed for things that it knew that nature would and does demonstrate to us. A human fact, human nature, predicate acts with facts method was inherited. Self-valued roles were inherited. Certain type of victim, individually grouped and together and or sensed, was shown at the end of a whip, at the end of the proverbial whip, even if not physically. That same breaching method with the physical whip, where and how Americans, before they were Americans, and while the process of becoming Americans, which has not been liberated, the suburbs were designed tactically to nature to cause people reliant upon food from other locations. The only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and nature is if the self-value rules of criminally foreign influence, criminal insidiousness natures of them. It's different if a president speaks about power. I mean, there's non-difference too. You guys want to have debates about power and strength. What keeps the other? What is can't stop being itself as why distinct species bodies. Even fish have eyes, two eyes. I mean, there's one I saw a YouTube video or with one eye somewhere. I think it was on television too before. It's an unusual fish. It has a nose. I don't have the link to it. I don't know where I saw that. But in other words, in the birds, in the bees, no, in other words. And what's going on with the news? They're showing us that how long have we seen the nature of infrastructure? If you really understand American, care about American history, for example, each of the sciences are a bridge to the natures as a certain type of victim/hyper victim. Forgiveness is because there was a hyper foreign where that is also juxtaposed with foreign. On a mass scale, all locations, areas, and states, all natures of identities of difference, like with the law identity, styles of life. Oh, well, I'm this, I know about the law. Black pupils, what do they know? They in other words, they're fake. The difference between them and the overt criminal enterprise, this breaching method keeps them defending groupings of criminal enterprises as collusions with the predicate acts with facts method /S right on off the campuses. It is more overtly discernible on New York City campuses. It is use/S consciously too of the difference /S between the best campuses in New York City and between the worst ones because they have failed for science. So, in other words, there's people stacking in New York City, and there are people throughout America that know about it and know that we could help like that. Not just because we have to do that. You have to write the right legislation. In other words, you guys are missing how this preaching method sensed and senses, and how we are capable of. In other words, we are capable of putting pantheism everywhere at once. That's science too. This is not no jokes. The hyper simultaneous distinctly the only thing is it is what came first. The value of that. And it's only increasing more than just the value of that. And then it is distinctly the order of the finite, the smallest finite detail that we could only grapple with one way, /S. Positive or negative, dealing with, but we have stage systems other than how it communicates about positive and negative. So we can't entertain this, for example, and afford to protract short words proper regarding the predicate acts with the World Trade Center. This recorded the people involved with it speaking about acts when they speak about the kids they arranged in New York City. How long have they been repeating about their roles as the counters too? When you repeat, you have the counters to the transsexuals, boys and men and women with six minds with the girls' bathrooms because they have it on and off and in the news. They're pretending, well, speak for yourself. When they were little kids, they're putting fake things in databases. There as timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of other different countries, families, where their differences, because in other words, our other founders had to be counter extorted, and they, in other words, everyone had to pretend passions, emotions the way George Washington helped James Madison plan, force them to. Ugh. In other words, we would have found this if there weren't a whole bunch of people who are fake when they believe that's I see, that's the evidence. In other words, they have courts that make mistakes on purpose every day because there's certain type of victim / hyper victim. Forgiveness only allowed. That forgiveness is important for it because it's a conversation about the law that knew to the people that wrote that behind the. In other words, and the education from ages before that, those sciences became criminally foreign influenced, affected by criminal foreign influences, affected by attacks on all locations /S, everywhere the human species body is. And there are proofs that the causes of it, the cause singular of it, and or it's more practical to theorize and or let alone to convict, is more that a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise of international ancient people, a part of the system /S back then, as the republic for which we stand, and as the exceptions it valued. In other words, but they knew they were going to get caught, and they figured out the only way they could not get caught was to create negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to get people to get enough people to blame other things, others ourselves for that, and then to defend that, and then to stay stuck with nature's demonstrations of that. Needed to increasingly not realizing that would happen, but they would be increasingly not be able to afford to be, no matter who would make those words, the short words properly, using the sciences, how they share an identity properly. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling share grouped the identity the sciences share, and they're about fighting. But they're about fighting by the rules. But the rules have stayed abridged. And not only were they about fighting, but how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts and natures everywhere at once, and or else how to sense. The sciences were about this, evolution science /S, and or else we sense. In other words, all natures of industry and of wealth, for example, this set up where if you go into that, leaving out how some natures of industries are more criminally foreign influence than others, and this was, is, right, where, and how America's wealth is variable. In other words, America was never had no wealth. The only reason it had wealth because we had people counter-extorted to be forced to be Americans and to pretend patriotism. And that's all that has spoken to an extent, Black pupils, because other has been spoken for James Madison. So other is spoken about the appearances of justice. In criminal insidiousness natures are readings of what that should mean, that pretend that they should be justice when they are not. So they're using time. They can't defend their uses of time. They self-value rules with sequence shifts. Things manifest at corners of streets, corners of buildings, and with perception, with the intelligence family members, overt criminal enterprises and private ones are acting tied to putting fake things in databases and little tricks associated with it. And maybe they have legitimate agreements about how to vet people and stuff like that, but they never had. In other words, all that is employed to measure and maintain collusion/S with other, not just in Madison communicated and George Washington and the Constitution unabridged and our founding locations. So people associated with the campus of Hartford Hospital have also UConn. UConn has roles with names. These are great. All campuses are great, but everyone's too. They're pieces of junk thought. They're criminally foreign influence thought, tactically delusions rot, rules of all kinds of natures of organized crime methods/S, rules with predicate acts with facts against the people of Hartford, Connecticut, and of Wethersfield and its other, the other conjunctions to Hartford, sickly distinctly, which is relative because this is also where George Washington had to come to counter-extort right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, as what enabled the fact-cheating nature means to leverage the counter criminal insidiousness nature needed to convert England to help America, while England was itself being tortured, extorted, and enslaved through names themselves was being tortured, extorted, and enslaved. Now, there are means to easily discern this that are simultaneously discern all kinds of natures of criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality, aspects, nature, and tactical delusions regarding the monies involved with the campuses that, in other words, Central Connecticut State University has rules of wire crime acts and messes with the people with the bursar's office and the business office. And I'll sign. I won't sue if the news will help me, but you have to give me up these people here that are also involved anyway, putting fake police reports as collusions with child defenders, leaders of the kids, and you watch what's actually on off the campuses. And with these names on Two Route Highway and Hang Dog Lane, please don't pretend you know me. And don't hide how people I used your names with me, because those are the people involved with the World Trade Center attack. Increasingly, Whiting Forensics has rolls of name on off the state capitol and on off involved with the wire crime acts and methods and police switching names. Wethersfield police are switching names of people on Central Connecticut State University, UConn, and Quinnipiac University and Trinity College. And increasingly with this person, Paul Zano, they apparently took a picture next to me with him on that campus one time to pretend to know me. He's been planting evidence to make a fake exception. We had no communication. He had only said Jew to my in front by timing where I was going to be to my neighbor a bunch of times, and that's where they're trying to pretend to know me with. In other words, all except in other words, a couple of times I went on a bus to some trips with a like maybe three times, four times. I don't even think it was, it might have even been four times. Maybe about four times. What is it? Parks and Rec. Something to do with it, where there were men and women with the Parks and Recs that roles with drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids. A whole bunch of people with Harvard Hospital and with the names next to them, with like Tomorrow's Market and Iola's Kitchen, involved with mayors, involved with foreign and domestic medical families, planting evidences, fake conversations with people, roles with uses of investigations, investigators remotely criminally foreign influence, has something to do with their roles with judges and prosecutors, also with the names and locations next to the campuses. Whole bunch of people next to Trinity College involved all along Route 3 in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill and Cromwell, planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slanders against others. It has something to do with their roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the lawyers and the interbranch forging, switching names, six switching sequences, and the Ninth Circuit Court in the World Trade Center attack context, the same ones interstates, Washington and New York and Connecticut, and note that plane hit Pennsylvania too. So this is more than just, these are people involved with the former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants like a Thaddeus Skarbowski, neighbors of a Dominic Lapriato, involved with state police, with Vermont and Rhode Island, and involved with the ones with the names Zeno and Cololo, involved with military police too, foreign and domestic, private people involved planting evidences and fake motivations is increasingly as their roles too, because they have the judges and prosecutors, family members with them, planting evidences, and with the Whiting forensics increasingly. Phil Cololo is further involved with a principal child defender, and they're involved with wire crimes in the Weathersfield police, snatching little kids and their families to fake conversations with police through time, and with the news. The news pretended that they pretended all this stuff at once with the interbranch and their sources. When I caught them with the principal child abuser, so a whole bunch of stuff was confessed to me by the people. It's also people like their roles with corners of streets and the inter-services. It has people with Paul Kelly with the Air Force. They attach me and fake, and so that's what they do. They start fights between everyone because these are the names with a whole bunch of different countries involved. And I'm trying to leave their names out because there's hyper involved, foreign involved too. That's one of the things that's one of the things demonstrated too by the North and South. In other words, you guys have the subjects of America all convoluted and sick, and you can't defend your takes on America because you have out of sequence the important, you have out of value the importance of understanding why and how George Washington agreed with our founders behind him to to use his plan to counter extort at 13 locations to force founders. Before the Constitutional Convention and slavery was still entrenched. And you guys, you have narratives and natures towards that, and the nature of debate, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, black pupils. They have to pretend that America is against something, is what our identity is. We're against a dictator. In other words, a dictator tells you everyone's A through Z, you're nuts. With the slavery entrenched, regarding takes on what Jim Crow laws are about. Criminally foreign influence takes exactly the way the breach method wanted it needs. Shock and awe. Two, pretending other for itself, screening it. So way worse. What is it about? Jim Crow laws? It's about the predicate acts with facts delivery system method /S, and the plural part being you, A through Z, or you're sensed. Vaccines get all each and sensed. And calm this way. Many pray. That's why we have to calmly be able to get people to put when they're putting falsified police reports, we have to force them onto paper calmly because they have collusions at the crime scenes with this. and with the fake motivations planting with a whole bunch of different countries relative, because these are timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And their cultural differences interbranch, they already use them with their thought, exactly the way the breaching methods assign them to, as shock and awe. Forgiveness is for this. Is not to call them names. The court wants you to call them names. They want you to call the police names. They have to pretend other, so they're recording. They're making them to pretend other. Mr. Waters, Jesse Waters with Waters World, he's being lied to. The same ones involved on my street. A whole bunch of people from Trinity College recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Oh, a Ray Collo was involved with them with a Joshua Stryker, with a Dean Alford, and with a Dean Judd from Central Connecticut State University too. Involved also further with people involved with a principal child defender and Whiting Forensics and judges and prosecutors involved. There's a Brian Silver involved with the Leahy family with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, also wire crimes, evidences crimes planting, attaching kids and their family members, fake uses of drugs, fake uses of alcohol, fake ties to others, fake natures of ties to others, sequence shifts planting. As the people who did that with the names all in the context of the World Trade Center attack, Connecticut intelligence put them sequence shifts since too. A whole bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University involved with recorded conscious uses of the departments individually grouped and together in ways that show how each of those campuses are used that way. You see how they bring up culture, leaving out how that breaching method assigned to black pupils. You see those people stacked in New York City, what can grow below their feet? Concrete, you asphalt. Here. I said, I'll teach you clear. YouTuber Anthony Wall. Please get me from the fake conversations that WFSB pretended. Also, the news recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with uses of words like privacy to measure and maintain collusions with sequence shifts and federal evidence as crimes, and roles with predicate acts with facts at methods/s. Increasingly, there are people involved with the shopping centers and malls, and as roles with natures of managers that are also roles as police forms and intelligence families, and as with the judges and prosecutors planting evidence on all sides of my house and all sides of their houses. Also with motivations planting that are in ways that they don't even understand. These are people involved with so a whole bunch of different countries. Other countries in the news are involved with our campuses in ways they are directed not to talk about, but they confess and demonstrate collusions with that, but they can't help it per what is manifest, per where and how it uses remotely. All locations, areas, and states, individual, grouped, and simultaneous difference/s. Again, I tell it best, boxing. This is why we are individual bodies of a species individual body with group difference singular/s being demonstrated, not just grouped differences, the species volume. Even species that die, their value was only increasingly valuable. That's becoming harder to see while it's simultaneously becoming easier to see too, because this is manifest because of how the hyper simultaneous uses being the simultaneous, and hyper additionally being the individual finite, and simultaneously being the active grouped in ways that we can only accord with or not. Not just for what's going to work as a criminal and serious nature of positive negative treatment, as has only been allowed to speak for black and white. See white survive. See how cipher was forced on our founders. See how other right to our schools needs an excuse. Why roll self-value with criminally foreign influence summaries of American history? It needs to pretend that it cares about homework. It needs to pretend that it doesn't understand. In other words, little kids had recorded before federal various natures of federal criminals before they were caught. They were pretending passions and emotions with them against strangers and using perception. There's some people in a third grade class next to my class. They were in my class. They're the same grade, but they were in another class. I don't know them. For example, they were used to. There are people from off campuses, and sometimes it's the ones that have stayed on off it through hyper additional motivations and criminally foreign influences. So you have more people with the campuses that have been planting evidences. Increasingly, they have roles directly and indirectly with whiting forensics and with people on off the state corrections offices and on off the state judicial branch offices. The state corrections offices right next to it was one of those gatherings where the kids where they do a street takeover and they had people spinning with cars and all the kids were gathered. And that was in the news. It was like a pattern. See, this is roles with all kinds of a whole bunch of names with the mental health. The Hartford Hospital have been putting fake things in databases, also as police forms, and judges and their family members. Also used remotely at crime scenes increasingly. Then someone gets arrested, they're going to use that to hide life, but pretend not to realize. The same names are the ones leading the prisons. All exceptions, exception nature, all counters, collusions too. Everyone's tactically delusions wrong. Get on paper, one name in sequence. Let's go. Sandy Hook campuses further involved with courts and people off the state corrections offices and judicial offices involved further with medical campuses. Hartford Hospital increasingly has roles with um, the Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison there, where they have the people that run the prisons involved with crime scenes and body dumping spots increasingly. In other words, still with the same people that used to be intelligence families that used to live on my street with the name D. Simone and O'Brien. Also, as the people recorded and confessed and demonstrated confirmed involved with Hartford Hospital, with the police departments with the name Cololo, with wire crimes with them, and with these Mendez police and people with the name Domain on off of Fox Connecticut News. They have a Rick Sam Paglione also who planted evidences. People Hartford Hospital says the name Casper, and they have him rolls with my neighbors that they put in fake conversations, me with them and them with me, and changed ones as they're playing games with the Smith family. With one of the Smith family, a whole bunch of different Smith families. One of them was a judge I had to write a complaint about when I was a little kid. He has roles of people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the campuses putting fake ties in nature, the little fakes with the behind people's backs, putting fake things in databases, and lying to the teacher, to my principals behind my back, and with the boyfriend of a daughter of one of the principals involved with the people further involved with medical offenders of the kids too. At the same time, with the police chief Cintron and another retired police chief involved with this Cololo with all kinds of natures abuses of kids and natures of organized crime out of Hartford Hospital and campuses with their teachers too. A whole bunch of people from Trinity College also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a Mr. Neville. A Mr. Neville has been putting fake things in databases, roles with federal evidences, crimes with agencies, and people with involved with such natures of extortion and torture relative as their roles with the World Trade Center attack. Also, the Withersfield Community Center in the town offices, and people with the Parks and Recreation, and are further involved with abuse of the kids and stories with people. There's I forgot his name. Roger Suzanne is involved with stories and kids along Route 3 and their family members with the intelligence community, like with the name and tied to, involved also with mayors. Retired mayors have roles also with all kinds of abuses of kids, with overt criminal people associated with overt criminal enterprises and medical offenders recorded roles, crimes with their patients and criminals before they are caught and in their places. They just speak things out and they're changing and faking what's recorded. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital have been fabricating transcripts and putting it through the mail too. These are people involved with remote uses of the sense and sensibilities of Judge Napolitano and of Judge Janine sickly distinctly to keep house functionally, how sickly non-distinctly is self-valued by themselves, being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot black pupils. Here, New York will stand. But I'll tell you something else too. The people speaking for the religions, you have tactically delusions, readings of the religious book. That's why the beginning of the Quran and the beginning of the Old Testament have parts to say only defend this part. You guys want to defend everything out of sequence. You got to hurt yourself. You're letting them get away with predicate acts with facts upon the people of New York City, sickly distinctly from the people of all locations /s. Let alone the people of New York City. And nature's demonstrations of that they have long been in play. People, natures of industry rely upon those things, those demonstrations by nature to blame things on other things ourselves, keep them blamed on that. So you have real sick courts and prisons and rolls with a torture /s method that is a predicate acts with facts method, a nature of identity theft, fraud, slander, three ways manifest. I taught best vaccine. So in other words, we're going to break all legal things. Black pupils, force mandated law. Get them to fix the fake conversations with me. WFSB and Fox Connecticut News rolls with that, with the names next to them. Fox WFSB, I'll start with them. Then we'll go into the digital crimes of the FBI and other agencies and the military. And fear God to wait or to deny it. Then we'll go on more. Are you going to fix the fake conversations? Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go. Get the courts on paper, Judge Napolitano, please. Let's go. I'll make me pay.